The Korvax Stellar Institute orbited a neutron star in the Zephyr sector, its gravitational shields maintaining a perfect equilibrium against the crushing forces that would tear lesser structures apart. For 3 centuries, it had been the galaxy's premier institution for training the next generation of starship engineers, quantum physicists, and void walkers. Its student body represented 47 species from across known space, each one having passed impossibly difficult entrance examinations. Daniel Thrace, a Centaurian with bioluminescent markings along his temples, noticed her immediately when she entered advanced relativistic mechanics. The classroom fell silent as the human girl walked to an empty seat near the observation window, where the neutron star's radiation created a perpetual aurora against the shields. "That's the human," whispered Kex, Daniel's 4-armed draconite roommate. "Orla Chen. Heard she got perfect scores on every entrance exam, every single one." Daniel raised an eyebrow ridge. Humans were rare at Korvax. Their species had only achieved faster-than-light travel 70 years ago, making them relative newcomers to galactic civilization. They were considered primitive by most standards, their biology fragile, their technology derivative. The few humans who attended prestigious academies usually struggled in the lower percentiles. Professor Zalvith, a crystalline luminar whose thoughts materialized as geometric patterns in the air, began the lecture. "Today, we tackle the Fitzgerald-Lorentz paradox in non-Euclidean spacetime. I expect detailed tensor calculus and at least 4-dimensional modeling in your solutions." The problem appeared on everyone's neural interface, a nightmare of recursive equations involving faster-than-light travel through warped space near a black hole's event horizon. Daniel had spent 3 nights preparing for this unit and still felt underprepared. Around him, students hunched over their holographic workspaces, manipulating equations with practiced precision. The Draconites used all 4 hands simultaneously. The Luminar students thought their mathematics into existence. Daniel worked methodically through the tensor calculations, his enhanced Centaurian neural pathways processing data at twice human baseline speed. After 40 minutes, Professor Zalvith's geometric thoughts pulsed with satisfaction. "Excellent work, Miss Chen. You may present your solution." Daniel looked up sharply. Orla had finished. The human girl stood and walked to the central display. Her hands moved through the holographic interface with casual efficiency, and her solution blossomed into 3-dimensional space. But it wasn't just correct, it was elegant. Where Daniel had used brute force tensor calculations running 12 pages, Orla had found a mathematical shortcut that reduced the entire problem to 3 elegant equations. "I notice the paradox resolves if you treat spacetime as a quasi-periodic tiling rather than a continuous manifold," Orla explained, her voice calm. "The Fitzgerald-Lorentz contradiction disappears when you account for quantum foam at the Planck scale. The ship isn't actually experiencing temporal dilation, it's hopping between discrete spacetime intervals." The classroom erupted in whispers. Professor Zalvith's patterns shimmered with colors Daniel had never seen before, colors that meant profound surprise in luminar expression. "That solution," the professor said slowly, "has been theorized but never proven. Miss Chen, where did you learn this approach?" Orla shrugged. "I worked it out last night. Seemed more elegant than the standard method." Daniel felt something he rarely experienced: inadequacy. Over the following weeks, Orla's pattern continued. In quantum entanglement communications, she derived a new theorem that increased bandwidth efficiency by 40%. In exotic matter engineering, she redesigned the Academy's antimatter containment system, eliminating 3 potential failure points that had existed in the original Draconite blueprints. In zero-gravity combat simulations, she moved with an efficiency that suggested she'd spent years training in void conditions, though her files showed she'd grown up on Earth's surface. Daniel found himself increasingly fascinated and disturbed. He'd been top of his class before Orla arrived. Now he was second, and the gap was widening. "She's not normal," Keck said one evening in their dormitory, his primary arms gesticulating while his secondary arms mixed a protein supplement. "Humans aren't supposed to be like that. They're supposed to be slow learners, emotional, impulsive." "Maybe she's genetically modified," Daniel suggested. "Some human factions practice enhancement." "Illegal at her age. Galactic law prohibits cognitive modification before neural maturity. She'd have been flagged in medical screening." Daniel pulled up Orla's public file on his datapad. Orla Chen, age 19 standard years, born in Beijing, Earth. Standard human genome, no modifications detected. Parents were agricultural engineers, nothing remarkable. Except everything about her was remarkable. The turning point came during the Proxima Crisis simulation, an annual event where students had to solve a cascading emergency aboard a colony ship. Teams of 5 worked together, and historically, even the best groups took 6 to 8 hours to resolve all critical failures without losing more than 30% of the simulated population. Orla's team finished in 43 minutes with 0 casualties. Daniel watched the replay in stunned silence, while her teammates were still analyzing the initial crisis, a reactor breach combined with a navigation computer failure. Orla had already identified the root cause, a quantum virus in the ship's AI that was deliberately creating the cascade. Instead of fighting symptoms, she'd written a countervirus in real time, deployed it through the entertainment system to avoid detection, and eliminated the threat before it could trigger the tertiary failures that would have killed thousands. "Impossible," breathed Professor Zalvith during the post-simulation review. "The quantum virus was designed by our cybersecurity expert. It should have been undetectable for at least 2 hours." Orla tilted her head. "It was well designed, but it had to interact with the ship's systems eventually. I wrote a monitoring algorithm that watched for anomalous quantum state changes in the AI's decision-making substrate. Once I knew what I was looking for, building the countervirus was straightforward." Straightforward. Daniel wanted to laugh. The countervirus she'd written casually in 40 minutes represented doctoral-level work in quantum computer science. That evening, Daniel found Orla in the observation deck, watching the neutron star's radiation patterns dance across the shields. He approached cautiously. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. She glanced at him and nodded toward the space beside her. They stood in silence for a moment before Daniel spoke. "Everyone's trying to figure you out, how you do what you do." Orla's expression remained neutral. "And you?" "I've eliminated all the obvious explanations. You're not enhanced. You're not hiding a secret education. Your brain scans show standard human architecture." He paused. "So either you're the most exceptional human who's ever lived, or you're not entirely human." Orla turned to face him fully. Her eyes, he noticed for the first time, had tiny flecks of gold in the iris that seemed to shimmer independently of the ambient light. "What do you know about human evolution, Daniel?" He frowned. "Basic biology. Your species evolved on Earth over millions of years, achieved sentience approximately 300,000 years ago, developed technology recently." "That's the official history," Orla said softly. "But Earth has been visited before, long before humans achieved spaceflight. There are gaps in our fossil record that mainstream science can't explain. Sudden jumps in cognitive ability. Cave paintings that show stars in configurations that would only be visible from orbit." Daniel's bioluminescent markings flickered with uncertainty. "You're saying humans were contacted?" "Not contacted, influenced, guided. There are rumors in certain human circles about bloodlines, families whose ancestors were changed, given advantages, nothing obvious enough to show up on standard genetic scans but encoded deeper, in the quantum structure of our neurons. in the way our consciousness interacts with the physical universe. She turned back to the neutron star. I'm not special, Daniel, I'm just what humanity is becoming. Your species had a million-year head start. Ours is taking shortcuts. Daniel processed this. It should have sounded absurd, but it explained everything. Does the Academy know? Some suspect, but I haven't broken any rules. My genome is human. My augmentations are natural, if artificially accelerated through generations. I'm simply here to learn, same as everyone else. She smiled slightly. And to show the galaxy that humans belong among the stars, that we're not the primitive newcomers most species think we are. You're going to change a lot of minds, Daniel admitted. That's the idea. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the cosmic light show. Daniel realized that the future of galactic civilization might look very different than anyone expected. If Orla represented humanity's trajectory, then in a few generations, humans wouldn't just be participants in galactic society. They'd be leading it. And perhaps, Daniel thought as his markings pulsed with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. A species that refused to accept its supposed limitations, that solved problems through innovation rather than tradition, that looked at the impossible and simply asked, why not? Welcome to Korvax, Orla, Daniel said quietly. She nodded once, her eyes still reflecting the neutron star's fire. Thank you, but this is just the beginning. Daniel believed her.